To welcome our guest.
To have you here, and indeed we are very proud to welcome you to this discussion. Yeah, so feel welcome and share with us. Thank you.
But I think we need to make a distinction between the substantive excellencies and, you'll soon become one. If you just continue the way you are doing, you'll be soon called really Your Excellencies. As you know, today we are having this simulation. It's really, we are trying to, in a sense, prepare our students to learn how diplomacy really works in practice, and to learn how, when they become eventually diplomats like yourself, and as you know, I was also myself a diplomat, I was an ambassador, so I know how it's like. It's not something you wake up one morning and just do. So they have to, we not only take them through the theory, which is they go through in class, but this is part of the practice. So that they learn the practical ways of not just doing the normal day-to-day work in their various embassies, but also how to negotiate, because this is what diplomats do on a daily basis. They don't spend their time in their offices. They go to negotiate for their national interest in various fora, depending on whether it's a bilateral station you are in or a multilateral station. And I have had the privilege, Your Excellency, to work in both capacities, both as a bilateral ambassador as well as a multilateral ambassador. And so this is very opportune because this afternoon they're actually trying to see in a simulated way how Kenya and India can enhance our bilateral relations, which even in real life, are very, very good relations. But before we get to that, some of you who may not know, the ambassador, you may want to know a little bit more about the ambassador, His Excellency Sibabrata Tripathi. He is, a scholar in his own right. He obtained a BA and an MA degree in history from Stephens College in University of Delhi. And after that, he of course entered the Indian Foreign Service in 1971. He also lectured in history at University of Delhi. So he's both a career diplomat as well as a former lecturer, and I think that's another thing we share, you and I. And he has worked in various diplomatic missions of India. He has worked in Cairo, in Abu Dhabi, in Seoul, in Helsinki, Panama, and Colombo, before he was then appointed as ambassador to the Republic of Madagascar and the Union of Comoros in 2002. He was then thereafter appointed High Commissioner to Uganda, and was also accredited as ambassador to Rwanda and Burundi. Before his appointment as the High Commissioner of India to the Republic of Kenya, the High Commissioner was Joint Secretary, West Asia and North Africa Division in the Ministry of External Affairs in New Delhi. So you can see he has a very, very rich history of diplomatic service. And for him, I think he'll be, maybe he'll be able to tell you, some things in his, presentation about, just some of the tips that you may need, even as you try to prepare yourself for that one day that you may actually be, a substantive ambassador representing Kenya in India. And you may need to know some of the things that you need to prepare yourself for. But I'll leave that to Ambassador I should be saying High Commissioner, really, because as you know, there is a distinction. High Commissioners are always representatives, ambassadors who are representative of their countries to all the Commonwealth countries. And both India and Kenya are part of the Commonwealth. So I think, though they mean the same, but we make always that distinction. So again, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Institute of Diplomacy and International Studies. And really what we are simulating here is really very warm bilateral relations that have already been existing in reality between Kenya and India. And they date back very many centuries, even before both Kenya and India became independent states. And these cordial relations between us really have not just been empty cordial relations, but they have really been enhanced in both the matters of economic relations, bilateral trade between the two countries, which has increased over time. And as of 2011, 2012, volume of trade had gone up to 2.4 billion US dollars. And this was, on the average, a 44% annual increase in our trade statistics between the two countries. And in that regard, of course, now as we speak, as you know now, there is all this talk about the BRICS, and India is part of the BRICS, and it's a big phenomena. And as we talk about the BRICS, we always talk about Kenya's economic relations with India in that regard. And we are proud to say that, now India, has become, one of the top markets for Kenya's, both imports and exports. And we are now actually ranked the sixth largest trading partner for Kenya, which is very important. And we deal, of course, with all manner of things. You know them, Your Excellency. I'm not going to go through them. And so really in being here, you are not only witnessing a simulation of what our students have learned and they continue to learn, but also really is a reflection of the very warm, cordial bilateral relations between Kenya and India. And on that note, I really want to thank you again and welcome you to say whatever you want to our students. Anything you tell them, they will learn a lot from you, Your Excellency.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador Zomo. In keeping with, I must begin by saying esteemed co-chairs and excellencies and members of both delegations. But in keeping with normal templates of bilateral negotiations, we do this sitting down, not standing up. So I shall claim that liberty for myself, and I shall speak to you with your permission, sitting down here. What I plan to do today is first to thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. Believe me, it's not only good for you to listen to me, but it's good and useful for me to be speaking to you, to be interacting with you, and to notice this undercurrent of interest in subjects such as bilateral relations, how to augment them, how to enhance them, how to negotiate your way through the sort of myriad channels of diplomacy. So what I shall do is give you a vignette, as it were, of the kind of relations that exist between Kenya and India. As Ambassador Zomo remarked, these relations are not new. They're very old, but I will not inflict a textbook on history on you. I shall be brief, and then I'll hopefully try to share with you how bilateral negotiations, usually what they aim towards and how they end in terms of documentation and things. I'm very happy to be with you, the IDIS students and faculty, as you work on a simulation exercise on bilateral talks, and particularly aimed at enhancing, and this is an important word, the content and nature of relations between India and Kenya. Kenya, to my mind, is indeed fortunate in that it is not only that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs here has its own diplomatic academy, but that an institution as distinguished as the University of Nairobi has within it an institute such as the IDIS, dedicated to the study of international relations. Since you will discuss relations with India, please permit me, Ambassador Zomo and all of you, to recall one important piece of history that connects my country, India, to the University of Nairobi. After the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi in 1948, a year after India's independence, a group of Indians living in East Africa, in what was then Kenya colony, what was then Tanganyika, what was then Uganda, got together and decided, as a mark of memory to Gandhi, to collect funds, both in East Africa as well as in India, to collect funds to set up an institution of learning, which they planned to call the Gandhi Memorial Academy in Nairobi. They visualized an institution that would resemble what was then known as Makerere College in Kampala, which would teach just about every subject possible. Not yet a university, because remember, these were affiliated to the University of London for some reason those days, Makerere. I leave it to your spare time and to your internet research to find out how this idea evolved, with additional financial contributions from the Government of India, from various East African countries, and from others. This led to the founding of Royal Technical College and later University College, Nairobi, in 1961. In 1956, the eminent Indian philosopher, diplomat, and statesman, Dr. Radhakrishnan, visited Nairobi and unveiled the statue of Gandhi that you see in the Gandhi Memorial Library now. Since then, many Indians and many Kenyan graduates of Indian universities, including former Minister for Foreign Affairs — I mention Foreign Affairs because that is what you are going to be embroiled in very shortly — and the present Cabinet Secretary for Education have taught in your university. These were both graduates of Indian universities. I'll come back to the role of education in bilateral relations. There was life, as Ambassador Zoma mentioned, before the compulsions of colonialism brought us together. Indians were trading with towns along the East African coast since pre-Christian times. We have archaeological evidence in the ruins of many settlements. We also have linguistic evidence in the numerous Indian loanwords to be found in Kiswahili. We know how the cutting of the Suez Canal heightened colonial attention in our region, and how the decision to build the Uganda Railroad brought Indian laborers, carpenters, mechanics, etc. to Kenya, and through them added variety to your demographics. They are a part of your demographic mosaic. Indians contributed in many other ways to Kenya colony, to life in Kenya colony in those days, as teachers, doctors, lawyers, policemen, etc. With independence in 1947 for India, the floodgates of decolonization were opened all over Asia and Africa. New nations emerged independent from British, Dutch, Portuguese, and other assorted colonial rule. Anti-colonial movements emerged in East Africa too, of which Mau Mau was one expression. Indians such as Makhan Singh and Pio Pinto, remembered now as Kenyan heroes, made important contributions to the achievement of Kenyan independence. When Mzee Jomo Kenyatta and other leaders were tried by the colonial authorities for sedition, what became known as the trial of the Kapenguria Six, Prime Minister Nehru sent a member of parliament from India, Diwan Chamanlal, to join the defense team for the Kapenguria Six. At this time too, my first predecessor here, Appa Pant, appointed Commissioner of India to British East Africa in the first year of our independence, 1947, decided that besides supporting Kenyan leaders such as Kenyatta, India would also do what it could to help in capacity building through a scholarship program that enabled many Kenyans to study engineering, medicine, economics, or train in the trades. Others, such as Oginga Odinga, for example, went on long familiarization trips to India. He stayed in India for 2 months, wrote a book on it. Most of this early generation has passed on, but our scholarship program has grown stronger, even as the Kenyan university system has itself become self-sustaining. Another important facet of such solidarity between India and Kenya was Indian capacity building assistance in industrial technology, demonstrated through investment ventures such as the Raymond Woolen Mills in Eldoret, the Pan-African paper mills in Webuye, Berger Paints in Nairobi, or, for example, the supply of machinery to create an industrial estate in Nairobi. I have spent some time on education and technology for one reason. Although we commonly view the Kenya-India relationship through the prism of trade alone, and justifiably so. As last year, for example, as Ambassador Zoma mentioned, India was the largest exporter to Kenya. It is important to see the Indian contribution in its many other varied aspects that also include recent investments in chemicals, petroleum distribution and refining, mobile telephony, ICT, healthcare and pharmaceuticals, floriculture, dairying, food processing, etc. India is not a traditional donor to Kenya. And although it is so, many industrial ventures here have benefited from Indian soft credits. Under a line of credit of $61.6 million signed in 2010, several transmission lines are being built between points in Kenya as your country continues to invest in the energy sector. India and Kenya also enjoy good defense cooperation relations. I don't know how many of you know that. Mainly through training for Kenyan officers and other ranks in Indian defense training establishments, exchange of visits, etc. On the softer side of things, you'll be happy to know that Indians are traveling to Kenya for tourism in ever-increasing numbers. Many of these aspects of our common relationship can provide examples for your discussions. A word now on how we work with the government of Kenya. We have always tailored our cooperation programs to Kenyan priorities. Now, this is an important point. When we deal with countries as equals. Therefore, we administer our scholarship program, for example, in close consultation with relevant ministries. We discuss trade and industry matters through the Ministerial Joint Trade Committee. Our foreign affairs and other ministers meet at bilateral as well as multilateral forums. For example, India and Kenya are founding members of the Indian Ocean Association for Regional Cooperation. Kenya has a High Commission in New Delhi, and I'm very happy to tell you that the next Kenyan High Commissioner to India, a lady of some distinction, leaves for her assignment tomorrow. Kenya also has an honorary consulate in Mumbai. We have a High Commission in Nairobi, and we have an Assistant High Commission in Mombasa. I hope I've given you an overview and some food for thought for your discussions. A word on process. As Ambassador Zoma would have told you or will tell you, most intergovernmental talks ultimately result in one or several forms of international instruments. These could take the form of treaties. Treaties comes from Latin and indirectly a French word that means to negotiate. It could take the form of a convention. It could take the form of agreements, protocols. I notice in your tentative agenda here that you will work towards a protocol. It can take the form of agreed minutes. It can take the form of a declaration, which could be in the form of a policy pronouncement, or it could be, it could resemble an agreement. Some governments prefer to conclude memoranda of understanding, or MOUs as they're called. And very often we have an exchange of notes. These are all various forms of understanding of greater or less rigor, but nobody, believe me, goes back on understandings and agreements. I'll also give you a list of what exists, because you are going to discuss enhancing, obviously, enhancing what exists. I'll just give you a list of agreements that do exist. Trade agreement, 1981. Cultural agreement, 1981. Now remember, 1981 doesn't mean that they're outdated. It's just that once you sign an agreement, it's good till one party or the other revokes it, unless specifically there's a mention that this agreement is valid for 10 years or 20 years or whatever. But otherwise, they are open-ended. They're valid. Convention on the Avoidance of Double Taxation and Prevention of Fiscal Evasion with respect to taxes on income, 1985. Agreement on the establishment of an intergovernmental joint commission for political, economic, cultural, scientific, and technical cooperation. That was signed in 1999. An agreement for air services, 1996. A memorandum of understanding on bilateral air agreement between India and Kenya, Now, when you have an agreement and then a memorandum of understanding, obviously somebody is trying to amend a particular clause. Again, an air services agreement, a new one in 2009, a memorandum on technical cooperation in telecommunication, 2001, a memorandum for consultations between the ministries of External Affairs of India and Foreign Affairs of Kenya, signed in 2003, an agreement between the Export-Import Bank of India and the Government of Kenya for a line of credit for $61.6 million to finance power transmission lines in 2010, an agreement on mutual cooperation between the National Small Industries Corporation of India and the Kenya Industrial Estates Limited, 2009, an agreement on Pan-African e-network between Telecommunication Consultants India Limited and the Kenya ICT Board in 2009, a memorandum of understanding between the India Trade Promotion Organization and the Export Promotion Council of Kenya in 2003, a memorandum of understanding between Kenya Electricity Transmission Co., KETRACO, and the Power Grid Corporation of India in 2011. I've given you a long list of agreements that already exist, and I leave it to you to negotiate your way forward and enhance this relationship, which, to my mind, is already a beautiful one, based on respect for each other, based on equality, and based on advancing the mutual interests of both countries in a way that's harmonious and, I think, a good example to everyone else around. We value our relationship with Kenya, and we're proud of what we've tried to do so far, and we have plans for the future that will enable us to work together with our Kenyan friends to take this relationship even further. Thank you, and if you have specific questions, I'll spend a couple of minutes with Ambassador Zomo's permission trying to answer them. Thank you.
Very much, Your Excellency. I only have one question as we deliberate this afternoon. From where you sit as the actual High Commissioner for India to Kenya, are there any, say, 5 priority areas that you'd like to see enhanced between the on trade relations between Kenya and India? Thank you. Today I'm representing India as the Minister of Commerce. Thank you.
Okay, for Foreign Affairs from Kenya. And my question to the High Commissioner of India to Kenya is simple. When you look at the balance of trade between Kenya and India, in a way it is purely imbalanced. What should Kenya do to improve, or what can we focus on as a nation so that we can improve the balance of payment?
Communication India, and I would like to inquire how India, or rather how can India assist Kenya to advance in medical technology, especially through cooperation with our local universities in view of advanced medical awareness in India. Thank you.
It's a mix. In India, we call our ministers honorable ministers, and there are 2 of you have outvoted the one Kenyan here, I notice. Now, 5 priority areas in which India can work with Kenya. One of the points that I tried making more than once was that India, with regard to any country, any friendly country, works to the priority of the country that it is dealing with. India does not work to its own priorities. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I have nothing to lose here. I'm with students. And even though a diplomat's basic core business is to be a liar, he does not lie to students. The lecturer in me takes over, and I stop lying when I see students, believe me. What are the 5, if there were 5, priority areas for Kenya? I think we are just 2 days away from the absolutely eloquent speech that His Excellency the President of Kenya gave just day before yesterday to the nation. And that speech, more than any other document that I'm aware of, sets out Kenya's priorities. Kenya's priorities are no different from, coincidentally, from that of India's. We are both, like it or not, we are both developing countries. India is not a rich country. It may have been fortunate in having industrialized. It certainly has one of the world's largest economies, but it hasn't forgotten the path it took itself as a developing country. We know where we came from. Having said that, the priorities clearly are infrastructure. The priorities clearly are energy, healthcare, employment. I mean, these are Kenya's priorities. These are India's priorities too. And if we are to help or assist or work together in partnership with Kenya, those are the priority areas that we will work with. Therefore, when you see a line of credit for $60 million for transmission lines, it's really to enhance Kenya's capacity in the energy sector. That power is not going to go to India at all. It's going to stay here or hopefully get exported around the region, as Kenya plans to do through a grid. Right after this meeting, I'll be meeting with the chairman of one of our largest government water organizations. He's here because somebody's invited him to have a look at some irrigation-related issues in Western Kenya. These are the priorities. Really, whatever Kenya's priorities, food security is a priority. I don't know what all we can do in that area, but when I say irrigation, clearly it is with the intention to augment food security that we talk of irrigation. I now come to another area which I don't know whether I'm really equipped to answer. How can India assist Kenya in medical technology? Now, it speaks very poorly of the Indian minister to be asking his own High Commissioner how he can do that. But